Sir David Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's an honour to speak today ahead of Armed Forces Day, a day not of pageantry, as the Honourable Gentleman Mansfield just said, but also of principle. And I congratulate the government on, as it were, reinstating the pageantry as well, which is a good thing. And it's a day to recognise the men and women who both serve and have served in His Majesty's Armed Forces, the quiet professionals who carry the weight of our security, often in silence and too often without thanks. We owe them and their families, as we've heard, a debt of gratitude that we can't ever really pay. But gratitude alone is not enough. And as the Minister said, only a quarter of veterans really feel that their service is properly recognised. And there's a reason for that, and I'll speak plainly about it, and I hope the Minister will not take it as partisan. I hope he'll take what I have to say, in what were difficult 5 minutes of listening for him, as a call for action, a call for assistance, a call for help, if he likes. Because as my right honourable friend on the front bench said, there's a shadow that hangs over our armed forces, a political and legal vendetta targeting the veterans of Northern Ireland, of Operation Banner. These men answered their country's call at one of our country's darkest hours. Without hesitation, they stood between the innocent and the terrorists, often literally, often in the way of the bullet. And now, decades later, they're treated not as heroes, but as suspects. The frankly inadequately informed inquest over the SAS-IRA conflict at Clonard was just one incident in which elderly veterans are being persecuted, and there will be many more. We should never forget that terrorists killed 722 British soldiers during the Troubles. The people who carried out those murders have effectively been exonerated by the British state. I don't blame the state for that, it was necessary at the time. But today, we witness a legal crusade against the men who risked everything in the service of peace. Now, this is not justice. It's an attempt to rewrite history. It's prosecution driven by politics, not facts. While the killers walk free, authorities hound the soldiers who stop them from killing and treat those soldiers like criminals. Now, the Legacy Act, forgive my shorthand, but the Legacy Act was designed to put an end to this travesty. And for its own reasons, the government has decided to repeal that act. But if it does, and this is important, but if it does not properly replace it with effective legislation, it will hand the initiative back to those who spent decades glorifying violence. And I hope the Minister will pay attention to every detail of that paragraph I've just said, if you do not replace it properly. The government must decide whose side they are on in this exercise. Our veterans, now in their 70s or even later, deserve peace in retirement, not a knock on the door and questions about battles that they fought to defend the public half a lifetime ago. Battles that were fought under orders. Battles that were fought under supervision. Battles that were fought under yellow card rules. And battles that immediately afterwards had close judicial examination of everybody's behaviour to ensure that they obeyed the law in every respect. And often the military police were involved in that. Looking back to the gentleman from Stockton, is it, who spoke earlier? And they weren't always popular in doing it, but it was a necessary part of the process. Not one of those conditions applied to the psychopathic murderers that they were up against. Not one. And I've repeatedly asked the government to end this shameful campaign of retrospective injustice. And I'll continue to ask until I get a meaningful answer and resolution to this running sore of injustice. That's why I support the petition that my right honourable friend referred to, the 145,000 signatures, an astonishing number for such a short time. But that is just the start. This is not just massively important to our veterans. If this rewriting of history succeeds, this weapon of lawfare can be used against soldiers in any future conflict, destroying the effectiveness of our troops in future operations. Now, this morning, the Daily Mail had a powerful headline starting the campaign to highlight this very problem. But we should remember when we look at that headline that this is not just about our special forces. It's about all of the armed forces. There are, I think, at least 20 inquests into actions by government agencies and forces that could potentially be restarted by the government after the end of the legacy legislation. Only a minority are about special forces. Most are about conventional forces or the RUC or the UDR. So if we continue down this path, we will not only betray our past, but will also jeopardize our future. This campaign of persecution sends a chilling message to the next generation. Serve your country, risk your life, and face prosecution in your old age. Yeah. Why would any young man or woman sign up for that? And the truth is, many will not. And I know the Minister referred to better recruitment and retention figures, but they won't last if this battle is lost by the British state. Now, this challenge has been most high profile when it struck at our elite units, SAS, SBS, the SRR, the Det as it was once known. But it applies to every rifleman, every soldier, every member of the military who carries or wields a weapon in defence of his country. Every single one. And these soldiers who operate in conditions of extreme danger and uncertainty are required to make impossible decisions at great speed whilst under fire, the terror of being under fire. And they expect neither recognition nor reward, but they do expect one thing, the support of their government. We expect our soldiers to put their lives on the line for our country, but why would they do that if their country will abandon them after their service? So instead they face doubt. Doubt that creeps into the field, into command, into mission planning. If soldiers must weigh every trigger pull against a future court case, we cripple their ability to act. So what is the point of armed forces if we render them useless through legal ambiguity? Now, I am the last person to tolerate unnecessary killing or misbehaviour by our troops. Those who were here will know of my campaigns on torture and rendition in the past, so I will not stand for that. However, we must balance properly the rule of law as it applies to each environment. We already have well thought through rules of lawfare established in the Geneva Convention, and that's where we must look first when conducting a war. Now, from 2005 to 2007, during their operations against Al-Qaeda in Iraq, our military achieved, along with the Americans, spectacular results in saving lives. And I reiterate that point, in saving lives. In Baghdad, vehicle-borne suicide bombings fell from 100 a month to just one after we engaged. Sectarian assassinations, once rife, all but ceased. Care of our military. But this was not the work of indiscriminate bombing or division-level assaults. It was achieved through precise, controlled and surgical raids, generally by elite forces, backed by careful planning into some of the most hostile environments. The impact was staggering. Even a hostile panorama program showed that 95% of terrorist neutralizations were captures, not kills. 95% under unbelievable circumstances. And of course, thousands of innocent lives were saved. This is not just a matter of operational skill, Minister, but also of moral discipline. In the midst of close quarters combat against some of the most dangerous men on earth, our forces showed a restraint few could match. I have no doubt that from time to time mistakes are made, and these, of course, should be answered for. But if we allow our opponents to use lawfare to destroy these capabilities, we are left with blunt instruments. Yeah. The bomb, the missile, the drone. So instead of capturing or killing just the guilty, we kill every innocent civilian on a bus or every guest at a wedding party. Our military has been brilliant at doing the opposite, at being targeted, lawful and effective. Dismantling that capacity will not only be militarily reckless, it will be betrayal of the very principles that the minister himself said we stand for, that should distinguish us from those who we fight. So let us today do rather more than clap politely at a parade. Let's act. Let's end the relentless hounding of our veterans. Let's give our serving forces the legal protection and political support that they deserve. Let us recognise that if we find it difficult to recruit, it's a consequence of a state that too often turns its back on its defenders. This Armed Forces Day, let us make one promise, that no British soldier will ever again be abandoned by the very nation they have so bravely protected.
Yeah.